I am Clarke. I'm one of the directors at Chol Theatre. We are a children and young people's charity where we work out in the heart of communities in drama and education, and we specialise in co-creation. So in terms of contracts for us at Chol, a big part of all the work that we do is we don't make theatre for traditional stages. So all of our stories are collected in the community and we perform those theatre pieces in the heart of the community, whether that is a park or a high street or a pub. So when our audiences come in to see a piece, it's very much that they are immersed and they're part of the story as soon as they enter, whether that's the setup, whether it's almost kind of putting them in a bit into role, but they're very much in the thrust of everything and in the heart of it. And I think with our education work, so our flagship project, Imaginary Communities, is very much a performance in the classroom. So when we're exploring the dramatic story-making approach with children and teachers, they're very much immersed straight into that world, and there's an understanding that we are all playing. We operate under equal playmakers, so that's really the beating heart of our methodology, and thinking about the fact that we're all in it together and really as equal, all valued, all important, and everyone is significant in the space. So Imaginary Communities was a project that the extraordinary Dr. Vicky Story created about 12 years ago, very much working alongside teachers and children and head teachers to craft an approach whereby children can get excited about using drama and different art forms in the classroom as a way of developing stories. And this very much works on the idea that it's non-hierarchical. So in terms of the practitioner or artists and the teachers, they don't have a preconceived idea of exactly what's going to happen. So you set up activities and you set up a place for the drama to be explored and the world to be created, but up until that moment when you're all in it, you're present, you're there, no one knows which direction it might go. So you build a world together, all children have an idea, all ideas are accepted and valued, and then they come together to build that world, which could be anything from a flying spaceship of marshmallows to an angry volcano that erupts glitter to a wishing well that sings sweet melodies or whatever it might be. Every idea is accepted and is valued and input in the world, and then children and teachers all create their own character that exists in that world, and from there you develop the story, you kind of share the narrative, and we have different strategies that enable that story to develop and to grow and change. The power situation is really interesting because you're all playing, and because although you might have an idea of who you might want to be, quite often it's different depending on the world that you've built or created, and children and teachers alike can quite often choose someone that's very different to who they potentially view they are, or their characteristics are quite different. So quite often if you have a child that is always the good child or is always well behaved, and quite often they become the villainous or the mischievous character that wants to cause a bit of mischief and trouble. And the power's constantly shifting and changing because you build a very safe environment that's built on trust. It's very clear boundaries in terms of when we're playing and when we're exploring, and knowing when that can pause, and then as a community you then reflect, or you talk about or discuss, actually that's just happened, or that's going to perhaps injure or hurt our world. What can we do about it, or how might we help or change the situation? In terms of our online working, was a huge shift for us at Chol. Predominantly us as drama practitioners, and in the same way when COVID hit, we really wanted to think about how we could continue working with children and young people and the projects that were being funded, and making a piece of theatre, so this now needs to go online, what can we do? And that was really daunting, but also really inspiring in terms of what's possible. And personally, someone that the digital world has always been a bit of a, oh, that's something other people do, embracing that and thinking about how we can use that was a really interesting way of sharing stories. So our Tall Shadows project was, again, a young person led, because all of our work is co-created, and that's really important in terms of generating ideas and making a piece of theatre. And that all centred on Sheffield as a city and the different research and ideas and stories that happened here that the young people led with. And we created our very own Time Crashers nightclub, which built a theatre performance for young people, almost a bit like an escape room. So the audience were guided into different rooms and they met different characters, and there was kind of a challenge to solve, inspired a local piece of history. So for one, Picasso stayed in Sheffield en route somewhere, and then just thinking about different people and different artists that have been here to inspire those. And that was incredible for us in terms of thinking about how we can enable access for young people if there's any of those barriers, and what they can create from their own homes or from spaces together, but still have that performance element. So thinking about encouraging the writing and the creation, or the ideas development. And it also enabled us to work with people from different countries, because we had a filmmaker from a different country that was able to edit and work with young people. And again, that's having those introductions and like fostering those new relationships. And it was great for the audience. So you still had that buzz of you're performing live, but using the camera in a different way, and connecting to the audience in a different way was really fascinating. So techniques that really worked were in terms of, I think, encouraging the playfulness. So being playful with, we're on Zoom, so you have different screens. So how you might pass one object through to a different screen and what that looks like for the audience, or in terms of playing with this idea of space, or what's kind of shared and transmitted, was really interesting. I think, again, that what we love is that discovery in the moment. So because you were very much waiting for the audience to solve a riddle, or work out some kind of passage, or pick up something from a previous room into another room, there was always that energy and excitement and butterflies of, are they going to do it? They've got 3 minutes. If not, what's going to happen? How are you as a performer, or the young people as a performer, deal with that? So again, it's really thinking about the belief and the trust in the improvisation, or and the adrenaline of who knows where this story might take us. I believe our work is really interactive. I think because for us, all the work that we do, our theatre pieces or in schools or our heritage work, is very much inspired by local stories. And in terms of the oral histories and how we collect those stories, in terms of the interaction you have with the people who want to share them, then what we do with those, so then how we work with a community cast or young people or young producers, it's all very much following their lead of where they want to take it. And I think a big thing for us now is thinking about theatre is for everybody, and theatre should be accessible for everyone, and these stories need to be. So how can we create really interesting performances that can engage those people and those audiences that perhaps don't go to the theatre or might not have heard these stories before? So I think it's about about creating work that's not passive. So in terms of what you were saying earlier about the contract, I think it's really interesting because why do we create theatre in the first place? We want people to think and question or learn something, and for them to come into one of our shows or theatre pieces, from the moment they enter that, we hope that's our intention, that happens, that they're not just sitting watching something, but they are actually involved, and that's what's really exciting. I think it's, which sometimes I think us as Chol, we perhaps don't always realise, is the importance of those relationships that we build. So from the moment you work with a community or collect those stories, it's about not us parachuting in and collecting those stories and running away with them. It's very much being open and honest about why we're curious and why we're there in the first place, or what's struck up that kind of match of creativity that we go, there's something here, and who are the best people to help us share these stories, which is always really exciting. I was having this conversation with someone the other day. The idea of creativity is when you hear a story or you get excited or you meet someone, how very quickly kind of stars align and other things pop up, or you meet someone else, and I think it's just having the confidence and the trust to stay true to that belief to enable you to create something really meaningful. For us, I think the relationship between digital and theatre is really important. In terms of my background, I trained as an actress, and thinking about how you've got to constantly evolve as a theatre maker, and try new things. And actually, we know that the world is changing rapidly in terms of, for us particularly, young people, who is our main focus of who we really want to work with, and they are far outskilling all of us as a team in terms of their knowledge and what they know and how to use technology. So it's about putting ourselves out of our comfort zone as well to engage in that. But I think when I make theatre, it's part of the excitement, but part of the necessity of challenging yourself in your practice and not being afraid to go, I've got no idea how to do that, and it's part of that process, and trying and going and not being precious about it. So if it doesn't work, if it looks awful or it's just not feeling right, let it go. But you've had a go and it might be useful sometime in another project. I think as well, it's that tension, isn't it, between if we've got digital and a screen, how can we continue to make it really interactive, and again, not our audience not being passive, so it's still, you're just not a watcher, but you are part of the story, or you're engaging the story in a really meaningful way.